Luxury without limitations, style without compromise, a life well lived. Welcome to Selling the Luxe Life, the only radio show that seeks out and highlights the deeply authentic and genuinely meaningful, unique luxury lifestyle experiences in Orange County, bringing new and emerging premier products and services to discerning clients and connecting the affluent customer to the finer things in life.
Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of Selling the Luxe Life. I'm Rod Gantis, and I am here with Mr. Chester Pompeii. And this guy, you guys, some of you may know, who know me may know this guy, Troy Russell of the newly formed Troy Anthony. But I'm going to tease you a little bit longer. We'll get back to that. I want to get to Chester right now. We are sitting in Vestiario, right? Which means what, Chester?
Clothing.
Clothing.
Or clothing.
I'm assuming it's in Italian.
It is in Italian,
Okay.
absolutely.
And I'm getting a sense with your last name that there's a Italian lineage
Absolutely,
going on.
yeah. Of course, Pompeii being from the city, Pompeii, not myself, of course, but I definitely.
Where are you originally from in Italy?
The family's from Coulade, which is outside of Rome.
Okay.
So I have some from northern Italy as well as down in Rome, is where the family came from, pretty much so.
And it's a beautiful store.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's actually, I've said this to you before, it's not a large footprint, but you have done so much great stuff with the space. And we're right on PCH in Corona del Mar.
Yeah.
So is this the first time for you, like in the clothing business?
Oh,
I mean,
gosh, no.
I figured if you come up with a name like Vestiario, that there's a little bit of
There's something that
history.
goes along with it, yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, prior to this, I had a store out in Palm Desert on El Paseo.
Okay.
I chose to, that was 11 years in the making.
Okay.
I was out there, and kind of goes back to how Troy and I met too, but the store was Pompeii's.
Oh.
It was on El Paseo, and primarily was a more medium to higher price point store.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, I saw changes on the street as far as the seasonality, businesses coming and going. And over the last several years, just with the influx of things online and just the demographics of people coming in and coming out for season, there were too many things that I didn't care for.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to live in Newport Beach. I used to be with my partner. We had an interior design business here in town and lived in Newport, but then eventually moved out to the desert full time. Was out there actually almost 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And decided that I didn't want to stay in the desert any longer, and I wanted to open up a store here in Newport, Corona del Mar area.
Well, let me ask you this, though, because it's interesting. Anybody who's familiar with Southern California, familiar with the last few years of what's been going on, you're almost contrarian. Like there was a lot of flow to the desert,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like almost like a renaissance with Modernism Week and all that stuff that's happening in Palm Springs and Palm Desert, and you would think that the timing would be to stay there, especially if you've invested 11 years of being there, right?
Right.
But it's interesting. I find it interesting that because that you go back to where you're from, and you actually establish a space. It's very nice. By the way, don't get me wrong. I love the fact that you're here as an offering.
Thank you.
Because there's not enough in my book, right, that carries good quality stuff that's obviously very well thought out in terms of sourcing.
Yeah.
I mean, all you need is 5 minutes in here if you have any sense of style. I'm not picking on anybody, but to basically walk through here, but within about 10 feet, I guarantee you will get a sense of exactly what I'm talking about.
Chester will never say it, but he's got one of the highest taste levels in the industry for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very, very nice.
So interesting. And then Corona del Mar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was just a space that I had found. Well, actually moved here back in the late summer. Was looking at another location, and then unfortunately due to some personal medical situation came about, and it kind of ceased the operation of moving forward.
Right.
Because of a lot of unknowns.
Life happens.
And fortunately things were resolved. The doctor took care of me very well, and so pursued it again and found this space back right around the holidays,
Mm-hmm.
at the same time when I was coming through everything, and I thought, okay, how to make this work.
Mm-hmm.
Square footage was a challenge, but put a couple things together and thought things through, and it took a little bit longer than wanted, But however, open now just about 5 weeks.
Well, take a few minutes. I mean, I'm just putting my interior designer hat on. We do commercial interior design, but take a minute and talk about that, Chester, because you know you got a great location. It's a destination area,
It is.
right? So a lot of activities take place over the course of the year, Christmas walk, etc., and so forth and so on. You know, what are you, like less than a block and a half from the Sherman Gardens, right? It's a great, really great location, but you've got a small footprint. So let's talk about those challenges and how you overcome them, because the name of the show is Selling the Luxe Life. So it's not necessarily only about the products, it's also about what goes into the mind of somebody that is sophisticated enough to sell the Luxe Life, regardless of, you know, different mediums, different products, different services, take different nuances. But take a minute, please, and share that if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. Well, when in looking at the space, number one, there wasn't enough of storage.
Yeah.
So how to incorporate that? Number two was the vast window space, because it's pretty much 3/4 of the
Yeah, you don't
space
have walls.
is not walls,
Yeah.
other than
Yeah,
that back
yeah.
wall there and that one there.
Right.
So to make it all flow and work well, one night sat down with my partner who takes care of the marketing.
Yeah.
Sat down and we just I just drew it out, and I said, why not do some kind of cabinetry underneath? So after looking at different kind of furniture places and galleries and what have you, found these kinds of cabinetry that worked well, put the bar system in to give it a little bit more of an open feel versus banking it all with cabinetry, because it really encroached on the area. And then to still enable to show the product and people just to touch. What I wanted to do as much was possible would be to have as many items open so they could touch and feel the fabrics.
Right, not enclosed in
And not
boxes or
enclose
sealed.
them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you do have to, in limited space, you have to have some things that are just going to be continually full.
You know, but I tell this to people all the time, Chester, and it's kind of interesting. You know, we have sometimes a philosophy when it comes to retail, and unfortunately or fortunately, retail has changed quite dramatically. You're looking at a top real estate location, high dollar rent. You know, if you can make something happen in a scalable model that's smaller, you are going to be in a more of an advantage. Plus, you know, you don't have a lot of storage means that you don't need to carry a lot of inventory, but you have to be very sophisticated and clear and have good resources to source stuff when you need it. And those who are basically having a discerning eye, I would think, I don't know if Troy would agree with me, is that they will wait. If they've got somebody that's styling them, that somebody has got a sense of personal, you know, awareness of their style or image that they're trying to project, they will, and you see that a lot of that in the custom side of it.
Yes.
But I think it also applies to retail, because now you don't really have the ability to take on 3,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You don't really want to take
No,
on 3,000
nobody
square
does.
feet. Right.
Nobody does.
And I will just tell you this. It could very easily been a space that would have been feeling very claustrophobic,
Oh, totally.
right? Trying to maximize what you're talking about, right?
Right.
So I look around and I don't feel that. There's an openness, yet there's a lot that's on display and showcased in the windows. You've used every inch of real estate on glass to display, but you have not also buried yourself in the middle of the store with everything around enclosed.
Exactly. So almost a men's wardrobe.
It is. It looks.
Absolutely.
You
That's a
walk
very
in,
good way to describe it.
It's a very gentleman's feel, because this is a gentleman's store.
Mhm.
So the guy that could come in, he could feel very relaxed and select practically everything that he would need
Yes.
in his wardrobe.
Yeah.
Or trust you as, call it a valet, in the traditional sense of the word, right? To basically find the other items for them.
Right.
And if I get into the habit of knowing that I have things coming up, and if I'm accustomed to maybe ordering some custom clothing, then I will take the time in advance to contact you and say, I like this jacket, I'd like to source a pair of shoes with it, what have you, right?
Right.
And so, how long have you guys known each other?
7 years?
I was gonna say
7
7 or 8
years, yeah, 7 years now, yeah.
Yeah, at that time, he was working for one of the manufacturers that I had
Mhm.
showcased out in the desert store. He had walked in the store one day, and that was a 2,400 square foot store.
This
That's
is
a big
this is a
store.
story you were telling me the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he walks in, and I looked at Troy and I went, "You looking for a job?" He says, "No, I happen to be one of your reps." And I went, "Oh, really? That's a shame." And
It's a shame I've got a job for
yeah,
you.
because I would have hired him in a spot, and Troy did. Fortunately, we become very, very close as friends, and he had helped me during some personal times there
Mhm.
several years ago when I had some family matters back east. But
Yeah.
the thing is that we've always kept that bond, and we just always did things together or saw each other or whatever. And then when he knew I was opening up here, I knew he had gone into the more custom tailorable
Mhm.
aspect, and I said, how could we amalgamate with each other? And granted, you're in LA, I'm down here,
Yeah.
but how can we make it where you could get into this, where you could provide that
Don't give it
customization?
away just yet.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Don't
you know-
give it away
Okay,
just
I don't
yet.
want-
We're going to take a break and then we're going to come back.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
So we're going to take a break, and when we come back, you'll find out a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
And why Troy Russell also has a name of Troy Anthony associated with him. So we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of Selling the Luxe Life. I'm Rod Gantis, your host, and I am here at Vestiario. I did that good twice
You
in a
did
row.
that good already.
Vestiario, the gentleman's, what are we calling it?
The gentleman's wardrobe.
The gentleman's wardrobe in Corona del Mar. How long has it been open, Chester?
5 weeks.
Okay, Chester Pompeii and Troy Russell, but then he told me Troy Anthony, and so like, what is with the Troy Anthony? Troy.
It's simple enough. When I started the brand, I was very coaxed to use my name.
Yeah.
And originally it was Troy Russell, but then it was, or should I do Troy Anthony? I think Troy Anthony hits the ear a little better.
Yeah.
I like it a little more. Anthony is simply my middle name.
Okay.
So
now you know. That's the rest of the story.
It's my new name.
Troy Anthony. Troy Anthony.
I'm reborn.
Anthony is his new name. And so tell me about Troy Anthony.
So Troy Anthony is custom clothing. I do a heavy focus on Italy. I do offer a Chinese make, but the way that I differentiate my brand versus most other custom clothing operations is that I focus mainly on the Italian. And so being able to visit Italy and the United Kingdom and see the way the cloth is
Man
made.
hates to travel.
I hate it. Never leave. So being able to go overseas and see how cloth is actually made has just given me a deeper appreciation for what cloth is and seeing it go from this to that. And so I just believe that cloth of better manufacturers should be made up in the right place.
All right, so I'm going to give the guy a little plug, right? I was gone. The reason why we have not had a lot of Selling the Luxe Life recently is because we were retooling the show, and then I was gone for about 3 weeks or so traveling. And I happened to go through London. And this gentleman right here arranged for me for a behind the scenes at
The Savile Row.
Savile Row,
Yeah.
the Mecca
Yeah.
in London, right? And it was an amazing experience. I spent an afternoon basically, doors open to all these
You got to see the
tailors and
Kingsman
cutters, the
showroom.
Kingsman showroom. I mean, just unbelievable experience, really. So I just want to say thanks on the air
No,
because
listen.
that was, yeah.
My pleasure.
So, and
fantastic.
yeah, he loves to travel.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can follow him on Instagram under now, obviously, Troy Anthony, but also
Also the genuine _ article.
the genuine article.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my
So
style.
if you were wondering
Style.
what the genuine article was, that's the genuine article. Right? And so with the emphasis on Italy, which is really actually kind of interesting, because most people I don't think understand that there's quite a difference. I mean,
Yeah.
one of the things I picked up when I was doing that behind the scenes is there were showrooms that cutters that were specifically Italian style.
Oh, absolutely.
And then they told me that actually the Italian style started off in England to begin
Yeah,
with,
it
and
did.
then it's basically got
Keeps
covered.
on, yeah.
Right. So explain about that. Talk about the Italian style. How is that different?
Well, so I mean, so cloth and also styling are very different from England to Italy.
Right.
And so, honestly, Italian, you could just think very casual, very slick. It's what Americans have come to love.
Versatile.
Yeah, versatile. I mean, you could do something really soft like this online, just very
Oh,
soft.
sorry, hold on.
That was totally unintentional.
Little plug for
little
Troy.
Can't get away from it.
Sorry, I have a keen eye.
So, just the styling coming from Italy is very casual. I mean, obviously, look at the climate there. You know, obviously in the winter it changes, and it actually kind of goes to a little more of a British feel. But in Britain, the weather is a little more gloomy. They get a lot more of a season, and so it has to be a little heavier, be able to resist the climate a little more. So that's the biggest difference.
So I'm going to show off a little bit, right?
All right.
Because one of the things they told me on Savile Row, actually, the showroom, and I can't remember, sorry, I apologize, but they're the ones that are famous for their Italian. They're the ones who originated it.
Yeah.
Is that it actually started off where somebody was wanting to travel and wanted something that was a little bit more deconstructed.
Totally.
Because the rest of the stuff, the English stuff, is very lined and very layered, right? And so they wanted something that was more comfortable to travel in, and so the style was born out of that kind of need. And if you think about back in the day, you dress differently if you were on safari, if you're on the Grand Tour, all these things, right?
Totally.
And I can see how that would fit, because culturally, if you've ever been to Italy, and you're right, there's certain areas that are in the north that are cold. There's in the south, there's climatic differences in Italy.
Absolutely.
And that actually makes perfect sense to me, because there's a styling of clothing that actually works very well.
Right.
And with the culture being somewhat like a styled, formal, but not too much, and still having that sort of casual where I can take off my sport coat and then basically roll up my pants, and, kind of like that appeal of the Italian sort of lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's pretty cool. But you would think there'd be more of that, but in fact there isn't.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, the market has changed a little bit, and you know, certain things are to do with price, certain things are just to do with philosophy of a brand, and I think that, mostly for me, just like I said, spending time in Europe and having a deeper appreciation for what cloth is and styling comes about from that. It just, for me, launching my brand, and also, being in a partnership with Chester. I mean, his store is Italian-made goods,
Right.
so it worked out, and just the years of being in the industry and being around Italian-made goods.
So Chester, let me ask you this, because I mean I've traveled quite a bit. I mean, it wasn't like by necessarily. I don't want to make it sound like it's a horrible thing. It wasn't by choice. It was happenstance. Grew up in different parts of the world, traveled, went to school in different places, and so you, by virtue of just being, you get exposed to different things, right? And you start to get sort of a little bit of a sophisticated eye, maybe for certain things, whether you're intentional or not. You find yourself one day being able to kind of do that, right? So, I don't know if you agree with me, but I also think that we went through a period where men's clothing, in the United States specifically, was not really a big. I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about it. I grabbed stuff and I just wore it.
That's it.
Then we got into this era or period. Well, I mean, it was always stylish at a certain level and price point, but the more commonplace was not as discerning. And then we went through about a period of about almost 10 years where we have built this sort of more interest, more genuine interest. And it's not the girlfriends or the wives that are buying, it's the guys themselves that are buying and having a discerning eye. And I would think that over a period of time, it is natural that we find ourselves maybe today looking at nuances of differences, like an Italian cut versus a modern American cut or an English cut, right? Maybe even an appreciation for the different styles for different times and different functions.
Totally.
Like I could see myself wearing a structured tweed, but on certain occasions,
If
maybe
you're going to New York in January.
right, or if it's a fall, right? I can lighten it up and make it more of a California weight, right? But I can see myself more comfortable in Italian. I mean, there's a return for double-breasted, for God's sake.
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely.
All of a sudden, big lapels double-breasted. Which is this is vintage. I've had this for a long time, and I found myself putting it on and feeling very comfortable. 10 years ago, I would have felt completely out of place. Not 10 years ago, but maybe 7 years ago, I would have felt completely out of place putting on the double-breasted. It looked like something I picked up from Salvation Army.
Exactly.
As a leftover.
Well, I mean, if you really look at what the Italians have done, in fact, there's several knits that I have in here. They have taken that 50, 60 era,
Uh-huh.
and they've twisted it and modernized it.
Yeah.
There was that point in time where
More
they
fitted.
more fitted. They came when they first started. They took things a little bit too I think
Yeah.
a little bit too short
mhm.
and too sharp in a cut. But after that period of a year and a half, they then modified it, and that's where I feel that that's when the clothing industry for men, where it became more appealing to the guy,
Right.
because it was more in tune with the fabrics and the colors and the variations of the styles, and that's what enhanced it that much more. And that's what they're doing even with that 40, 50 era, even the pleat. The
Oh,
pleat
yeah,
was
yeah.
gone, and now it's coming back
Well,
again.
Yeah,
well, and
totally.
I think it's interesting because when I'm listening to gentlemen like you guys that are really into this, that are really kind of steeped into it, okay, and it's not like a happenstance in 2 weeks or a month. You guys have lived this. This is
Mhm.
part of your DNA, if you will.
Yeah.
Right. That's what comes across when you are now basically styling somebody,
Yeah.
True.
because you may be able to say, well, you probably need to do this.
Totally.
Like it's all about amplifying that person and not necessarily putting them into a collection,
Yeah.
Exactly.
especially when it comes to custom, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Or even just in the curated store, just as Chester's. I mean, how many people know about Paul and Shark? You know,
Right.
it's not a brand that's technically a household name.
Right here.
But it's one of the
Yeah.
finest brands
It
out.
is.
You know? And so.
By the way, perfect selection for especially this area.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's why I really honed in on the Paul and Shark. I felt that I carried that, of course, out in the desert, and I just felt that there would be a great focal point or footprint here in
Absolutely.
Corona del Mar, Newport
Yeah.
Beach area. Yeah.
I don't get the sense when I walk in here, honestly. I mean, take that as a compliment.
Thank you.
I don't walk in here. Well, wait till I tell you the compliment. but
There's one coming.
There's one coming. I guarantee you there's one coming. But no, genuinely, when I walk in here, you're absolutely right. This is a gentleman's wardrobe.
Yeah.
I've been struggling to try to figure out how to define it, and it's absolutely correct. I don't walk in here feeling like this is a retail store.
Right.
Honestly, it doesn't even. It comes across as hybrid,
Mhm.
custom.
Mm-hmm.
And I also get the sense that I'm seeing things that I'm not going to go down the street and even at a high-end store, and we have some around us,
Absolutely.
that I'm going to see these.
Yeah.
These are curated items that are stemming from a philosophy and a feeling.
Totally.
Yes.
Well, listen. Honestly, a lot of guys, custom or not, have kind of driven towards the retail world of like the department store.
Right.
Whereas guys like Chester and myself, we actually go quite the opposite direction. We believe in genuality and quality and actually keeping the bar at a high level.
Well, like
So-
a lot of people ask me, so what is it? What is the difference? I think it's honestly, it depends on. It's a personal relationship.
Absolutely.
But it's also an amplification of your own style. I mean, like you may not even know what that is.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're working with somebody that's not really about putting you into their mark,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
they're actually there to amplify you. It's like almost like a guide, if you will, of clothing.
Yeah.
That's when it really starts to gel for
Yeah,
somebody.
yeah.
And I've seen people short, tall, overweight. If you think about it, like plump,
Mhm.
let's say.
Yeah.
Really trim.
Mhm.
All of them, when they hit that sweet spot, and it's about them.
Sure.
And the clothes that makes the man, yeah, clothes makes the man, but it's also the man that comes through the clothes,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking earlier about how it is really important to be very true in how in evaluating the measure of a man,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
tongue in cheek on the measuring, right? But it's true. And if you're in the hand of an expert and a master craftsman, it's really what it is.
Yeah.
Then it's all about you that is being brought out.
Right.
I mean, I'm looking at this, and it's like so many options of fabrics here. There's really not a one size fits all.
No, not at all.
No.
No, it's not. I mean, this is going to look good on some guys, whereas this will, and some guys may just want solids. I mean, it's all about finding that sweet spot, like you said,
Right.
and just honing in on that, and then expanding on it, and just creating a
Their
story
own,
in
their
your
own
wardrobe.
individuality and
Absolutely.
their own personality within
Mhm.
their wardrobe.
Absolutely.
So that's fantastic, guys. I mean, so tell me, we'll end with this. What are you seeing? I mean, we're coming in on summer.
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys seeing, and what does it take for those who don't know? What does it take for ordering a custom, either sport coat or suit or article of clothing? What is the process, really quick? And then what are you seeing in terms of trends? I know there was a lot of window pane
Mm-hmm.
for a while now.
Yeah, it still is.
Right.
Still is. Yeah.
But it's changing a little, right?
Yeah.
Softer contrast, maybe.
Totally.
Smaller sizing.
Yeah, the scale will always change, and then I mean you have like things like this, which are sort of like a Glen plaid over a window pane. But I think as far as construction, softer shoulders,
Yeah.
especially for a guy who runs hot, like unlined, unconstructed, that kind of Italian casual is making its way into the market. And then brighter colors. I mean, forest green seems to just keep coming around.
Mhm.
But then also like light teals and light berry tones. Those are always going to be a big hit, just depending on the guy's skin tone and everything. But that's for custom. Like, what are you seeing like as far as ready to wear?
As far as ready to wear, pretty much the same thing. You're going to always have that variation, but there's a lot more bolder prints.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That variation with the inverted cuff and what have you. And
Yeah.
but you got that where some of it is that more contemporary, as I call it, that contemporary cut, not
Yeah.
a trim cut, but it's still giving that guy that opportunity to still continue to work out and what have you,
Yeah.
without it, framing him in and then going ahead and he has to get another shirt or
Right.
whatever it may
Right.
be. So it's giving him that flexibility. But you see a lot of the different patterns and the colors like you were just mentioning.
And they're bold. I'll tell you, what I'm seeing is they're bold,
Mm-hmm.
but they're actually somewhat sophisticated in the pattern.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're not just bold for in your face bold. They're bold, but there's a layer to sophistication. I'm looking around here, but I mean just in general. Like you got splashes, you got florals, but they're not like large in your
Yeah,
face.
absolutely.
You could totally see them being worn with a sport coat. You
Mhm.
could totally see them wear a pair of jeans down. And I'm looking at you guys, and I mean, you've got a very comfortable knit.
And the jacket,
Right.
structured.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ease could be worn a million
I
ways.
can wear it with a pair of
Right.
jeans. I can wear it with a pair of khakis. I can wear it with a pair of dress
Exactly.
socks.
Totally.
However I
Right.
want to wear it.
Totally. The shoulders very soft.
Soft shoulder.
Right.
Yep.
And I'm looking at the fabric here, that Troy has on, and it's a traditional fabric,
Totally. Basket weave.
but basket weave. But the coloration and the contrast is nice and fresh, right? And then the way he has paired it, there's a sort of a classicness to the combination,
Yeah.
but then the flair with the shirt.
Shirt. Right.
That's what I was going to get.
And
get
then
into
even
as
with the
well.
pocket square.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get into as well. That actually, with bolder patterns, there's ways to do it without adding too many bells and whistles to where it's still classy or tasteful. Versus, oh God, that's so much going on.
We were talking about that, right? We were talking
Yeah.
about how like everything became like, well, let's get everything on the jacket.
Totally.
Let's get everything on the vest. And there is a certain sophistication of that sort of less is more idea, if you
Absolutely.
will, of restraint.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, to bring it full circle, for me, in the beginning of my career, I loved wearing custom, and I check every single one of those boxes. And then you kind of get to know cloth, and you're like, you know what? The suit speaks for itself. The fit, the way the cloth performs, the way it looks, the way
Right.
it shines in the light. That maybe a little button detail, but not too much going on with the suit, and it makes it sophisticated.
Well, because again, right, we're talking about, it's about the article of clothing for me
Right.
first.
Right.
Yes.
Then the image projection, but it's really for me.
Right.
So if the quality and the hand of the fabric is important to me, if a monogram of a very simple, meaningful monogram for me that's not really in your face, large, bold contrast on the
Right,
sleeve,
right.
white on white. Do you remember the Ralph Lauren line where it's just
Yeah.
white line?
Yeah.
Like white label. We wore the polo horsey guy
Yeah.
in contrast color for so long, then they basically went white on white,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Remember
yeah,
that?
yeah,
And it was like
absolutely.
the more elevated way
Yeah.
to wear a polo.
Yeah.
Right. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time. Before we leave, please share the websites where people can find out more about you, and let's give them the address for where the men's wardrobe in Corona del Mar is.
Okay. Well, there's Vestiario.
And spell it for them.
Vestiario.
And you have to come in here and say Vestiario, otherwise we won't let you in.
No, I'll let you. Vestiariomen.com. And we're located at 2721 East Coast Highway in Corona del Mar, right on PCH, right off of Goldenrod and Fernleaf.
And my website is www.troyanthonyclothing.com. Troy Anthony Clothing on Instagram, and I'm direct all over LA. So come and see me.
Gentlemen, I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Appreciate
for
your time
being
as
on
well.
Selling the
Thank
Luxe
you.
Life.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us for another episode, and we will be back with some more interesting Selling the Luxe Life real soon.
Thank you for joining us this week on Selling the Luxe Life. We hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to hearing your thoughts and feedback via email on our social media platforms. Be sure to tune in next time as we continue discussing life's luxuries that inspire us while showcasing members of the Orange County community that share our same passion for sophisticated living.